the reason mindfulness is important is so that you can actually achieve fulfillment and focus on what's most important, even when your brain is telling you have to do your to-do list and you have to fight all these fires all the time. How do you actually create space for what's most important? You have to create space between stimulus and response. Otherwise, we're reactive all the time. And what mindfulness does is help you create that space.
All right. Well, Sherif, we appreciate you being with us.
Thanks for having me.
This is a topic we're excited to get into with you. So I'm just going to start and ask you, what is your daily mindfulness practice?
Way to turn it around on me.
Yeah.
I start off the day with meditation. So that's the automatic. Right. And then from there are some other practices, depending how much of a hurry I'm in. But, there's gratitude, there is visualization. But the primary thing for me is meditation.
Do you have a certain amount of time you feel like you need to put into that to make it worthwhile? Or can it be 5 minutes and that checks the box in some ways?
Yeah. So 80% of the time, it's 20 to 30 minutes. 20% of the time, if I'm rushed or something, I'll cut it back.
So mindfulness is kind of, I feel like it's absolutely more adopted, more accepted. There's a lot more curiosity around it in the C-suite, CEOs, I think. I see it. But I'm sure there's still many that are like holding out and maybe dragging their feet and saying like, that's kind of soft or it's unproductive. How do you guide leaders that feel like it isn't really necessary for business results? And are they still out there? I'm sure they are.
So it's interesting. Part of what we do with CEO training is we get into personality types. Right. And one of the personality types in the DISC profile, if you're familiar with DISC.
Yep.
So the D stands for directive or dominant is what they call it. In the general population, the D, which is the A-type personality, is 8 or 9%. In the CEO world, it's 40 or 50%. Because those are the people that tend to volunteer for things, tend to take action. They want to be the leaders. And so the A-type personalities are either really into mindfulness or they're like, no, I don't have time for that. I get bored if I have to focus on my breath, that kind of a thing, right? And so, yeah, we do run into that. I don't remember the other part of your question.
Well, no, I want to understand how you help them overcome it, or do you put data in front of them that says this is going to exponentially increase your bottom line, or what's the motivating tug?
Great question. So the way that I will start, I'm a big fan of Stephen Covey, if you guys remember the 7 Habits.
Yeah.
And, he says to begin with the end in mind. So I start everybody with a eulogy exercise because to me, that's the ultimate end is like, we're all going to die. And so just 3 or 4 minutes, what do you want people to say? And then my question to the room, it can be very personal, but my question will be, did you write anything down that surprises you? And if you're willing to share, great. If you want to pass, you can pass. Most people are surprised by how little, titles and achievements are in their eulogy versus the relationships and how they made people feel. And so the saying that I like is success is a science. There are formulas to be successful. Fulfillment is an art. So fulfillment is different. What makes you happy is different from what makes me happy, right? But that's where the meaning comes in. And so the reason mindfulness is important is so that you can actually achieve fulfillment and focus on what's most important, even when your brain is telling you have to do your to-do list and you have to fight all these fires all the time. How do you actually create space for what's most important? Well, you have to create space between stimulus and response. Because otherwise, we're reactive all the time. And what mindfulness does is help you create that space.
And why is this a passion topic for you? I'm curious, is there a pre and a post? Kind of when you started to adopt these principles, how did your life shift?
I think it's a passion topic for me because I just like psychology and what makes people tick. My mom is a psychologist. My dad was a scientist, so he drove me into engineering initially. Very strong influence. But that's really what I like to learn about. And so what makes people tick, led into some studies around that, and then how to help them led into mindfulness, beginning with, helping myself, when I'm stressed out, how do I deal with it?
What was the professional path for you that got you to this moment? Because that's you said you went into engineering originally?
Yeah.
Huge shift, right?
I've had kind of a colorful path, if you will. So I started out as a chemical engineer, then I went into corporate sales. Then we started a mortgage company, some friends, then commercial real estate. We flipped buildings for a while. And then I had a wellness business, which was a yoga business.
Oh.
And so that's where I got introduced to a lot of these concepts.
So you said, I think it's a quote, that fulfillment in life isn't about what you achieve, but who you become in the process. Elaborate on that and why that shift in mindset is so critical for CEOs and their success.
If you want to influence the people that are around you, again, going back to the eulogy exercise, how do my loved ones feel? How do my employees, my executives, how do they feel about me? It has to do with your state of being, not with how you're doing. How you're being is what's going to affect their perception of you and how you make them feel. So if you think about the Hobbit leaves what's the Hobbit's home called? Yeah.
The Hobbit's home.
There's a name for their little village, right?
Yeah.
So they leave, and it's like the hero's journey, right? So they leave, they encounter challenges, the obstacles, have to grow in character, achieve their goal, and then they come back. But when they come back, they're not the same person that they were before. So it wasn't about the achievement, it was about who they become. And to me, life is kind of like that, except instead of it being a circle, it's a spiral, because challenges don't stop, right? So you encounter a challenge, you come back, now you're a different person. You go back out, encounter another challenge, now you're a different person. And who you become then affects the people that are around you. So you never really get there, you just continue to try to improve yourself.
So you talk about 3 different areas of the way that CEOs, specifically your audience often is CEOs, but anyone, the way that we group our lives in 3 areas: energy, work, and love.
Mm-hmm.
How do you go about guiding leaders on balancing those 3 areas without getting overwhelmed?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the human mind tends to think 1, 2, 3, many. Right. And so most people, they have so much going on in their life that what I'm actually trying to do is to clump it into 3 areas so it doesn't feel so overwhelming. Right. And then those 3 areas, it can be any 3 areas, but to me, they're so important because energy, which is health, without your health, you can't do anything. And then work, which could also be called service, because that's what makes us productive in life. And then you have the relationships or love, which is a lot of the reasons why we do the other things. And they're also connected, because without your health, you can't have the other 2. If you have work and no relationships, you have nobody to share it with, and so on. So it's important to understand that you do not balance them equally in time, but you balance them equally in importance. Energy flows where focus goes is one of my favorite sayings. And if you don't have the focus, here's my ultimate outcome with energy. Here's my ultimate outcome with family or love or relationship. Here's my ultimate outcome with work. If you don't have that, then you're majoring in the minors as opposed to majoring in the majors, as somebody said. So you balance it by paying attention to it and putting it into your calendar, even if it's over the course of a week or a month, but not necessarily equal time.
Before we hit record, you were asking me about my mindfulness practice. I mentioned I recently went to Hoffman, which is the Hoffman Institute. It's up in Northern California. A lot of what they teach or walk you through is generational trauma, but really a lot of it is mindfulness and kind of how you check in with yourself. And so something I do daily, they advocate for the quadrinity check-in in the morning. Quadrinity being like you're split into 4s, your intellectual self, your emotional self, your body, and then your spiritual self. So it's kind of checking into those quads of your full being. And then in the evening, it's doing a gratitude practice, just 10 minutes of gratitude, right? So, but this AM, PM bookend, I mean, even if you can get 5 minutes and 5 minutes or 10 and 10, it can be really powerful and set the tone for the entire day. And so I know that you're a big advocate of that. How would you advise someone to kind of dip their toe into it and what works?
Yes. So the idea of AM, PM bookend, I love because especially if somebody travels, but even if they don't, it lets you ground every day and anchor every day, no matter what you're doing, where you are. So most of us have control of what happens when we wake up in the morning. Most of us have control of what happens before we go to bed. The day can be planned, but then a million things can come up and other people's urgencies and priorities can completely mess up your day. But what you really can't control most of the time is your AM and your PM. So if you have rituals or routines for those bookends, the bookends of the day, you're really able to navigate the ups and downs, the starts and stops of life and all the problems that come up. And I'll add to that, tomorrow begins actually with tonight's bookend, right? Because if you stay up too late or if you eat too much or whatever, then tomorrow you're exhausted and you're not feeling well. So the PM bookend is where it starts. And a good way to begin with that is to set a steady time that you commit to going to bed. There are all the studies, now that the importance of sleep and good quality sleep, and athletes make it part of their workout regimen, that actually sleeping, and setting a time of, stopping blue light stimulation. It's a very simple concept, but, checking your email or watching TV before you go to bed puts your nervous system into fight or flight. And then we wonder why we don't feel rested, So 30 to 60 minutes before you go to bed, stop that stuff. and maybe replace it with other stuff like stretching or shower or reading a physical book. So very easy way to begin. And then the AM bookend, what's important to you, if it's exercise, if it's meditation, if it's journaling, something, if it's creative work, can you do some of the most important things that matter the most before you check your email?
Yeah.
And then start reacting and start getting distracted from the things that are actually important.
I've heard be a maker in the morning and be a manager in the afternoon. And that's how my body works. Like I'm a better thinker in the morning than in the afternoon. So
and most people are. That's right.
Yeah. I've been meaning to pick up a pair of those like red tinted glasses for blue light, like after 8 p.m. My kids will make fun of me forever, but I saw Rick Rubin, that record producer, he was wearing the red, they're like red tinted. And I know it's really to cut out the blue light after 8 p.m. to like tell your body it's time to...
with melatonin, but still the information you're absorbing, even with those, is going to put your nervous system.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. So I should not be looking at, CNN or Fox News with my red tinted glasses
right before you go to bed.
Right. No. Okay. Got it.
So for busy executives, incorporating some of these habits can feel unachievable because they've got stuff to do. How have you guided, or how would you guide, a CEO that's watching or an executive here to the baby steps to start to incorporate some of these, or even some stories of leaders you've guided to make it feel less aspirational and to implement in their daily life?
Yeah, you really have to get clear on your why.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it important for you to be more mindful so that you can be more present with your employees, with your exec team, or with your family? If that's not important to you, there's nothing I can say is going to matter. But if that is important to you, start with the eulogy exercise, to remember what's most important. Just put in the bookends in maybe 5 minutes. Can you focus on breathing for 5 minutes in the morning? Can you focus on breathing for 5 minutes before you go to bed? And just make sure you get a good night's sleep. If you don't do anything else, get a good night's sleep.
How has creating boundaries around the workday, around work and everything else, how has that impacted you personally? What are the benefits you've seen? And are you good at it every day? I mean, do you still fall down?
Oh, it's a practice, right? It's not a perfect. So for sure, it has helped me a lot because I actually like working, I enjoy it, but I want to be present when I'm with my family. So there's this concept called, shut down complete. I'm going to pick the time, at 5, 6, 7, 8 p.m., whatever it is, at which time I turn off my computer, I stop working, and I'm just totally present for my family. What I've found is in order to have quality time, you need quantity, because you never know when the quality is actually, right? Because when they're receptive to it or whatever. It doesn't happen every day. Sometimes you have, deadlines and projects that need attention. But again, I don't believe in a perfect standard. Because, achievers are already very hard on themselves. And if you set a really perfect standards, then they just beat themselves up for not meeting it. So excellence is the standard, but grace is the word. You just always forgive yourself when you don't hit it.
I love that. It's a great quote.
Okay, so you have a 21-day mindfulness challenge. Can you tell us about what does that 21-day challenge look like? How can we pull from the tips and tricks to implement for our own lives?
Yeah, so pick some of the things we've talked about today, whether it's bookends, whether it's meditation, whether it's, all the things that affect your energy. So that includes diet, includes movement, includes rest, and just do it for 21 days. So, if I were to challenge you, I would pick meditation because I think that has the biggest impact. And if you don't know how to meditate, there are all kinds of apps you can download. 5 minutes a day. Pick a time that you don't miss. The best, easiest time is first thing in the morning, and just do it for 21 days. What I've seen is people who get into that habit, at the end of that, will actually, in the beginning, they're cramming it into their schedule and they're resisting it. And there's all this energy, I have to do it. Afterwards, they miss it if they don't do it. Start with 5 minutes of just observing your breath. Observe every inhale, every exhale.
What are you most excited about in terms of the work you're doing right now and the impact that you're having?
Another great question. My partner is what I consider to be a world authority on the subject of how to be a great CEO. Not a lot of people have thought about that for 30 years and created a curriculum around it. And so we're very excited about putting that into the world. What I'm excited about is, in addition to the success, for people to be happy, and to enjoy life along the way. And that just gives us a platform to be able to impact leaders, and then they impact the leaders that they serve, and so on.
Are you working on another book as a follow-up to this? Will there be another one?
We don't have one. I mean, we're thinking about several books. I don't know if it's going to be specifically a follow-up to this. I'm thinking about a mindfulness book. He has some other ideas, but nothing concrete yet. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Love it. Thank you for being with us, Sherif. What a great topic. We're really grateful to have you.
You guys are awesome interviewers. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.